Hi, I'm Bill from CJ Pony Parts. With the exception of our Roush quad-tip exhaust system, most of the modifications we've done to our 2015 GT convertible and more for looks. We've lowered the car, put on a set of Rovost Urban wheels, added a CDC styling bar, and most recently we tinted out all the lights. With it being a GT automatic with a convertible though, the car is definitely on the heavy side and can use a little more horsepower. So today we're going to add some power to our convertible by installing this cold air intake kit from Roush Performance. Roush Performance includes everything necessary to give an extra 10 horsepower and 8 foot-pound of torque bump to your stock 2015 through 2016 Mustang GT without any tuning required. It includes a Roush airbox, which will take the place of the factory airbox, a reusable high-flow filter that does not require oil, all the inlet tubes and seals, and has a very unique mass air meter. What makes this housing unique is going to be the removable insert. As it comes out of the box, the insert's installed. It's an 85mm opening, and this can be installed on your car with no tuning required and will give you a nice bump in horsepower. If you want more though, you remove these screws, remove the insert. Now you have a 105mm housing, which will get a lot more air to your Coyote engine. Now keep in mind, if you do remove the insert, it will require custom tuning, but you'll see even larger horsepower and torque gains. For this installation, you'll need a 1/4-inch ratchet, 7mm socket, 8mm socket, 10mm socket, swivel, at least a 10-inch extension or several shorter extensions, T20 Torx bit, needle nose pliers, and scissors. The nice thing about a cold air intake installation is going to improve the looks under the hood, it's going to sound better, add performance, and it's something most novice installers can handle pretty easily. The installation for the Roush is no different. There's one part that's a little tricky to do, but overall it's pretty simple, so let's get started. I'm going to start by removing our air intake cover. You can take it off, you can actually pull this brace off, it makes it a little bit easier to do, but if you're careful, you can get it off without removing the strut brace. To disconnect the cold air intake, we have to remove the bolt on the fender, disconnect from the throttle body, and remove all of these lines, including the sound imposer tube. The imposer is the part I mentioned is a little bit difficult with this installation. It's not hard to get to. The imposer goes back to the firewall and has to be deleted with the Roush cold air intake. It bolts to the firewall. The bolt is kind of tricky to get to, so we're going to disconnect it up here first to get the tubes and stuff out of the way, then we'll show you how to remove the tube with the firewall. The rest of these all have little push button connectors. Just push and release. A little gray tab for the PCV. Now we can loosen the clamp at the throttle body. Now we'll remove the airbox from the fender. Make sure you hang on to this bolt, you will need it later. Make sure you remove the mass air plug, pull out the little red tab underneath here. Pull the plug and also disconnect the harness from the airbox. Don't forget to do that. Push the harness out of the way. Now we can remove the stock pieces. If you follow the sound imposer back, there's a little clip here right underneath our strut tower brace. These are needle nose pliers, just pop that off. And what you want to do is follow it all the way back. It's going to go back behind the valve cover on the driver's side. There's a 10mm nut back there that holds it to a stud on the firewall. It's very hard to see with the camera. We're going to try to get in there and show it to you, but it is back there. You'll see the stud. You're going to need either a 10mm wrench or a deep socket to get it off. Honestly, this is the hardest part of this installation, only because it's tough to get back there and get to it. And once we get the nut off, then we can remove this imposer tube. We're almost done with the fun part of the installation, but now that you have the sound imposer off, you have to reach in there and install this plug on your firewall to keep air and heat from the engine from going into the hole. We're going to need a few pieces off of our stock airbox and transfer over to the Roush. What you're going to want is this rubber grommet here, rubber grommet on the bottom, and this grommet here with the metal insert. Once you have the grommets off, you also want to grab the mass air sensor, remove the torque screws to hold it in. Keep the sensor and the hardware, and transfer that over to our Roush. Now we're going to move the rubber grommets and bumpers over to our Roush airbox. I want to go in the exact same locations we took them off. Grommets on, now we can install the hood seal. Those little plastic clips will simply snap into the holes. The seal is going to fit multiple applications, so once you have it in place, you just want to trim off whatever excess you don't need. Now we're ready to install the airbox. Before we do that though, we have to remove these 3 clips for this wiring harness that'll give us enough slack to get our master wiring harness over to where the new meter location is going to be with our Roush airbox. Just little plastic clips, give them a little shimmy, they'll come right out. Push that harness aside and install our airbox. We're going to snap the extension snorkel on the front of the airbox and we can put it down into place. Okay, get it down the stock openings, then install the original bolt to hold it in place. Ready to install our mass air housing now. We're going to take our factory electronics, put it into the housing, and then grab the original screws and screw it in place. Next, we'll put the filter onto the housing. Leave the clamp loose at this point so we can rotate it and get it where we want it so we can tighten it down when it's on the car. I'm going to put the housing through the airbox. Make sure the sensor is pointing up. The only way you're going to have enough room to actually fit it through. To get it through, then you can twist it, put down the studs, and install the supplied hardware. That in place, now we're going to get the hose clamp where we want it. We can tighten that down as well. That in place, now we're going to feed the wiring kind of around the airbox here. Give us as much play as possible. And plug our sensor back in. Make sure you re-clip it on. Now we can move on to the main tube. Now we install the tube that's going to go from our airbox to our throttle body. It's easier to start on the throttle body side since this side over here is flexible. Get it in place, tighten down the clamps. And the last step is to reconnect the PCV and the other 2 hoses. Okay, reinstall your intake cover and your installation's finished. Let's start it up, check for leaks, and let's see how it sounds. Our exhaust does overpower, but you can definitely hear the Roush intake pulling a lot of air into our engine. The Roush Performance quarter intake looks great under our hood, sounds good, it's going to add some horsepower as well. Because it's a Roush Performance part, fit and finish is going to be spot on just like OEM. It's going to draw air from the factory duct, but also because it's an open element top, it's going to draw from the factory hood scoops as well. It's going to make good power as it is, but if you want more, simply remove that insert and get yourself a custom tune. The installation is very straightforward. Take you less than an hour start to finish. You'll be back on the road in no time.